Aloha, beautiful soul, and welcome to this brand new series. This is the Ascension Diaries, a vlog series that I was guided to produce to share with you from my own journey. So, I'm going to be sharing a lot of topics that are very important, that are powerful, that are going to inspire you and activate you on your own journey of consciousness to basically share more transparently my own experiences, what I'm observing, how things shift with more light within, where I'm going to be sharing a lot from my own personal journey with you to give you more real life examples of what everything looks like and how things work out and illusions and going through and programming and all of the different aspects of the acceleration of consciousness journey. So, thank you so much for joining me for this, and let's get into the subject of the day. Aloha, beautiful soul, and thank you so much for joining me for this series. My name is Marissa Indigo of Divine DNA Blueprint, and this initial episode, so I guess we'll say episode one of the Ascension Diaries, is going to be a little bit autobiographical in order to have a starting point, right? To kind of give some backstory to this entire process and to this project. So we were shown, I say we, a we consciousness instead of the individuated I or ego consciousness. You'll hear me say we a lot because we are speaking from a collective consciousness of self, meaning that I am aware of and observing multiple aspects of my consciousness. So you will see me reference my human ego consciousness, different aspects throughout time as well. Like I may reference like my inner child or my ancient elder, simultaneously galactic aspects like my Syrian, right? Or my archangelic self. Or so essentially this is the starting point of my entire awakening journey, ascension process, now getting kicked up to an entirely new level. And so my universe, I operate, I do my best because that's all one can do, to operate from a universal consciousness, which is different from the individuated human consciousness. So it's more of a soul consciousness, right? A divine, loving, heart-centered consciousness, and further developing more and more stages as we go. My mentor through this process is Lisa Transcendence Brown, who is an incredible way shower and a true revolutionary of consciousness, bringing forth information and shifts and depth that no one else has brought forth. So I highly recommend her work to support you as well on your ascension journey. And I am here also to support you by sharing what I have learned, what works for me. And now in this series, we're going to share what's current, like what we're observing, how we're working through programming. My channel, Divine DNA Blueprint, has been about the awakening and the deprogramming and the exiting the matrix process. And this is going to focus more specifically on navigating consciousness and deep programming as we are expanding into God consciousness and beyond, as there is more beyond that. But it's hard to even use words at this stage of the game because every one of us has a file inside of ourselves, like computer programming. Consciousness programming is just like computer programming, from what I understand. So every word is a file, right? We're all going to have definitions of what the word means. So language itself, at a certain point, is limiting. So I'm going to do my best to explain these concepts and to share. So this first series, or this first episode, I was shown by my universe, by my universal consciousness, to share on the topic of loss and fear of loss, and also money. So we're going to be talking about human programming when it comes to the fear of losing loved ones or your pets, and also money and financial abundance. So the eve of New Year's Eve of 2024, I observed that my cat, one of my cats, was in discomfort, and it was very upsetting to see that she was suffering. and I've been holistically treating her. One of my many hats is homeopathic remedies and Ayurvedic medicine. And I'm not a huge fan of the medical industry or any of the systems like that, including the veterinary industry. They all do have a place, of course, where they can be supportive for us, but I try to do most things on my own. And in this instance, it was also a forced situation. So I'll back up a little bit and explain that at different levels of consciousness, everything changes and money changes. So we're going to start with money and that root chakra kind of stuff with money and abundance and financial prosperity. And I'm looking out at the sky and the clouds because it helps me to track my thoughts and hopefully share in a way that's understandable or intelligible. All right, so the consciousness of money, it's an energy. And as we embody more photonic light and more consciousness, it means we can't get away with a lot of the old paradigm stuff. And we're unaware of this. It's programming. We don't call it programming for no reason. And so, as you have access to more light, which is love, which is power, which is divinity and grace, um, we also have to upgrade money and how we are receiving, how we are working with it. So, to try to keep it simple, essentially, the last 4 years, I have been in a period of basically living month to month, week to week, and in some instances, day to day. So, as you're going through some of the more rigorous aspects of the awakening and the ascension process, with everything happening with your consciousness, with your physical body, what your priorities change to, which become energetic, everything shifts. So our jobs shift, and how much we can show up and how much energy we can put outside and externally also shifts during the ascension process. So if you're not super well established, or you don't have a partner or on any number of scenarios where you kind of have some cushion, you have to learn how to function and how to receive and materialize abundance through a whole new level of awareness, consciousness, and it's all based on energy now and consciousness versus a more transactional way of I do this for you and you pay me for it, right? So there's a lot of layers that we have to decompress. Sorry, my eyelashes are stuck together. It's driving me nuts. Um, with regards to self-worth and worthiness, and there's a lot to deprogram with value and removing the human value systems. If we look at the 3D matrix, well, what is valued? Definitely not consciousness, definitely not your soul and your soul's light and the light of God. That's not really, that's not what we're seeing at award shows and any kinds of mainstream media and accolades or social media. We're not in an era where the mystics lived in a temple and they were provided for and money wasn't a thing, right? We're all isolated, we're scattered around the planet doing our journeys, grateful for the opportunities to come together however possible, which is typically online, because you're the only one where you live doing this journey, right? So there's a lot of root chakra clearing that happens with this. And right when you think you got the formula down, then another upgrade comes through and you have to realize a whole new layer of self purification, of self seeing, and purification of expectation. So all of the old 3D mechanisms go out the window. And even if you have integrity and you're not someone who is manipulative or soliciting or anything coming from ego, when it comes to money, you don't ask for help, you don't even let people know what your situation is, you still have deeper programming of self-worth, or I'm not putting out enough. How am I going to receive enough, right? Like, so when I talk about these programs of our entire reality in the old paradigm being transactional, I do this for you, you pay me for it, right? It doesn't work like that here. In the quantum realm, it's all about faith and trust and complete detachment, a total unconditional giving, knowing that you will receive, and you have to trust that you will receive, and you have to trust and love yourself enough to know that you are worth it, and you have to also listen to your guidance. So everything that you do is guided by your higher self, by, I call it my divine director. So I default to my divine executive director in everything. I don't plan any of my videos, any of my content. I'm told what to do. Oh, get up and do this video now. I was laying down before this to rebuild. So periodically we lay down in bed and listen to frequencies, and I just imagine my entire being being filled with different kinds of light, and doing different clearing processes, right? Surrendering and forgiving and bathing in appreciation, and essentially tuning. We're tuning our light body. We're tuning our frequency, and we do that often. You do that sometimes all day, sometimes half the day, or several times a day, because you can't be upright anymore. You have to go back to being horizontal to integrate. So a lot of my guided meditations of beautiful like light baths and stuff, those are my visualizations that I'm receiving when I'm tuning, when I'm rebuilding my light after, more processes, more clearing, and so on. So um, let's see, I'll make sure I stay on track. So I was told that this first video in this series of the Ascension Diaries was going to be about loss. And, we're sharing from a quantum perspective, so you will see me go in circles, but I always come back to the point. We expand and go way out there because everything's connected. So essentially, the initial program that I've been working through for quite some time now, in different layers, in different ways, for 4 years, is with financial abundance, which is a huge root chakra clearing, right? So, as I said, there is self worth, there's self value, there's dissolving the human transactional values, dissolving what wasn't valued, where we were devalued or degraded, right? So, there's all these clearings that go through. There's also receiving and having a sponsor and working through that, being able to receive that. That was a beautiful gift I received for a significant amount of time last year. I had a sponsor supporting me, saying, no, you need to lay around and you need to do your light body, and just rest. And that was very challenging to allow someone else to essentially provide for you and take care of you. So these are all different pieces of the root chakra of clearing our programming and our DNA of trauma, power dynamics, you name it. So the deeper layer now of the financial abundance is for this year, this last year of 2024 was, and I shared in the channel, a couple times I would try to get a human job and it just would not work out, or my body can't do it, my spine can't hold me up, my brain cannot do the linear tasks, my energy body would be exhausted. It's like a lot to be around people in the physical for extended periods of time, um, not sleeping. So it's like, being on a linear schedule, very, very challenging. I feel blessed that it works well with my daughter's schedule where we're able to get up and take her to school. Both of us really don't sleep very much at night. It's very hard or disrupted. The quantum flow is completely different than the human life. So you have to continually pull out in various stages of the human life. So this whole last year was learning about how to be a provider for myself and how to receive fully as a universal consciousness for myself, completely solo, no safety nets, and that's very challenging. Thankfully, I still have support from my family. I'm still living in a multi-generational household with my family. Um, but excess funds have not come, right? It's been like, no, you have to continue to dissolve within you where money still makes you feel good or bad about yourself, where money is a source of power, where you feel powerful with it and disempowered without it, where you feel validated or confirmed or like you're doing service, like you're actually doing a good job. So these are all the 3D old paradigm programs. And so if you are forced, I'm going to say forced, but not really, but the universe knows it's our universe, it's us, it's our universal aspect of ourself. And it knows what serves us the most. And if we're stubborn, then we do have to go to these more extreme experiences in order to learn. That being said, as soon as you see it, as soon as you spot it, you can transcend it, you can flip it, you can move the energy, because once you see, you are free and it no longer has a hold over you. And you can dissolve that program and build your frequency back, reverse the atomic rate of yourself, and boom, then you can receive again, you can manifest again, or materialize again. And so I was going through phases of receiving, putting work out, receiving for my work, and then the upgrades being so gnarly. Most of 2024, I was offline significantly. And then going through a period at the end of 2024 where I thought, keyword, I thought I found the formula where I could ask my universe for a certain amount to pay my bills for the week. And universe told me what to do. I did what I was told to do and I received the money. So I thought, oh, this is great. Now I know. Oh, thank goodness, the money piece is over. I'm like so over this, this like it's gnarly to live day to day like that. So here I am thinking I have the formula and it worked for 1 week. And then more and more and more weeks go by and it's not working. And I'm like, okay, what am I missing? What's the next level here? And so what I had to be shown next is where I'm gonna bring this in now with my cat. So I didn't have the money to take her to the vet. On a human level, I was upset about that. I'm observing. So I'm looking down in a way through my being. This is all metaphorically speaking, down through my being at that lower consciousness that's like, oh, well, that's kind of upsetting to not have rainy day money, to take care of an emergency, that doesn't make me feel very good. And then I'm watching and I'm up in my higher consciousness, and the universal consciousness is saying God consciousness. And I'm like, oh shit, what is that? What are they talking about? Because I've been working on universal consciousness, as my main focus for the last like 6-ish months or so. And just being a universe, which means that you're all encompassing yourself, yourself stabilizing and self-supporting and all of that. Soul self source employed is what I like to say. I am soul self source employed, right? As we are all entrepreneurs and way showers and all of that. So I'm watching the human feel shitty about not being able to take my cat to the vet, but I'm observing that everything I'm feeling, it feels like it's through like 2 feet thick pane of glass. Like before, human emotion would take over the whole body, the nervous system would become involved, it would be stressful. I would have, a cardiac response, like all kinds of stuff, in addition to crying. And now it's like, no, you're observing a part of yourself that is feeling that, but it's not the dominant part of you. So you're still acknowledging it, but there's almost a disassociation or a numbing that's happening. Meanwhile, you're in the higher consciousness watching all of it. And I'm like, okay, well, universe, what do we do? And I just keep hearing God consciousness. I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't tell me anything. Like, I'm in this state, my cat's in pain, I can't go to the vet. Like, what do I do? And then universe reminds me, well, ask the angels for help with what to do. I'm like, okay, that's right. You always have to ask, ask the angels and they can help. So I did. And then I was reminded, well, Reiki, you can Reiki your cat. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I take my cat, I start Reikiing her, and she's fine. She's fine. So that was New Year's Eve. It's now January 7th that I'm recording this, and my cat is fine. So this was another way for my universe to show me, in a way that you could perceive on the human level to be quite traumatizing or dire, that you do not need money for anything. And so that's part of the God consciousness that I can understand. I'm very just barely stepping into this consciousness. I'm not claiming to be an expert on any of this. I'm just sharing where I am and what's going on and doing my best to try to catch you up also. So I realized in that experience that there's still a part of me in the human that believed that money was the only way to have the power to do things, big things, or to care for someone else. So this is how the universe works: is it will come after you where you're vulnerable, where you have your Achilles heel, so to say, in order to reach through so that we can understand. So that was powerful. And I still was like, well, what is God consciousness? Can you tell me more about it? Because where I am is, I understand now. Lisa has helped us all to understand that if we were human our whole life, and now we're choosing to dissolve that. We're choosing to let it go. And, the universe and the shift, the photonic light, it's supporting all of this. So this is what's happening for everyone who feels this or is called to do this. Um, Part of that dissolving of consciousness is also acknowledging that we have no concept of anything then, that we're really starting over with a lot. And everything is all new because the only concept that we have, the only understanding that we have, the only logic, the only algorithmic way, that linear way of functioning is as a human. And we're coming at everything as a divine soul and as a universe. And so that's why I say, every step I make, every move I make, every step I take is guided. I ask for the instructions because I understand that if I think I know what I'm doing, I fucking don't. That's the human aspect. So hopefully this is making sense so far. So that was two things. It was another layer, another deeper layer buried in the subconscious where, you have to have money in order to do things or to have power or to make a change. I had completely forgotten about my Reiki skills. I mean, I've done energy healing since a little girl. There were a lot of aspects of me that were awake very early. Knowing I wasn't human, knowing I was like a galactic and an angel and all these things as a young child. But when you're dissolving the human, all the human life goes too. So I forgot, oh yeah, I have all these skills, but now you see they come into a different play, into a totally different level of use and meaning as well. If we're looking at things or trying to even understand, all we can do is just feel that word, God, consciousness. So, what I received from that, without allowing the human to impose definitions or stories or any knowledge from the human, um, I just say, tell me, show me what it is. And so for now, what I get is it's love. It's the pure power of love and how powerful love is. And that's the kind of love that is responsible for, miracle healing, laying on of hands in this instance with my cat. So that was very impactful. And I was very thankful that my cat's okay. And I didn't need to go to the vet, any of that. So that was the first round of that initiation with God consciousness. Then 2 days later, New Year's Day, and I'm just sharing all of this for reference so you can see it's new, it's fresh. This is all new for me. My daughter starts complaining about abdominal pain, and so I see again. I'm watching all these aspects of consciousness. So I'm watching my human, that's the mother of my daughter, be concerned that something might be wrong with her, but also feeling more deeply at a higher level of knowing and also in my gut. You want to say like women's intuition, whatever, just the intuition, intuitively feeling that she's fine, that we just need some more information. There's something else that we're missing. And so we started exploring 'cause she thought maybe it was appendicitis. Well, no, it's not on the right side of the body for that. It's, on the other side of the body and a lower quadrant of the abdomen. And I was like, I think it might be your diet because we've had a pretty gnarly diet for the holidays. And seeing, these events are also corresponding with the X-class flares. So we're all being affected by the X-class flares at the same time. I'm being affected in the ways that I'm sharing. My cat is going through, a response to the intensity of the frequencies, and now my daughter as well. So in this case, for my daughter, who is now a teenager, this was an initiation for her to start to understand that she actually really needs to start listening to her body and use discernment and wisdom with what she's eating, that it's a balanced diet and that she's having enough water and she's having her green juices, right? And not too much drying food, and conscious parenting is another episode that will focus specifically on that. But as a light being with a child, it's the same thing as any other person where you can give them all the information, you can encourage them, you can set it all up, for them to take care of themselves. But they still won't do it because they have to learn. So she's stubborn. She's like her mom, that she has to learn through experience. And what better way than to be afraid and to have this experience of, oh my God, something's wrong with me. I need to go to urgent care, right? So we realized, well, she just didn't have enough of moisture in her diet. I said, well, you haven't been having any of your green juices. Like you haven't been, all the things I am always asking you to do, which is part of your self-care. I can't force you to do them. This is your initiation where your body is now saying, I will not tolerate this lack of integrity with what you're putting inside of me. I will now provide you with pain or a symptom for you to listen. So that's her, it was her initiation. But in the meantime, I'm still holding space because she's frightened and she really did think she needed to go, to urgent care. But just assisting her to like, well, let's go through the list. I do have a nursing background. I didn't go super far with it because I'm not a fan, again, like I've shared with my own experience as a child in the medical industry. But I did start out with nursing to assist the elderly. And so I can just use, also that as factual data because that can really assist someone when they're freaking out to give them the data of like, okay, well, the pain is only in this one area of your body. There's no signs of any other struggle going on or infection. You don't have a fever. You're not vomiting. You don't have nausea. Like, we're going through the whole thing. This is part of being sovereign and acknowledging when it is and is not appropriate to utilize emergency medical services, right? Oh, so a couple days go by, we change her diet. I have her drink aloe gel water and coconut water and green juice and make sure she's having balanced food like I've always asked her to do. And of course, she's still a child. She's on her winter break. She wants to rest. She has a really rigorous schedule at school. She wants to rest and enjoy her shows and eat pretzels, in bed. And I get it. So these are two instances of the examples of the human programming of loss. Child and pet and abundance coming into play as well. And, you know, in addition to that, there's also for me coming out of my body to be observed the programming of all the trauma from all the hospitalization, the surgeries, the medical experimentation, all the shit I went through as a kid with autoimmune disorders, right? So you see how this process of clearing and being activated, it continues to go deeper and it continues to intensify. And so we really want to honor the process. And even if we feel more desensitized from the human experience because we don't identify as human. We're not operating as human. We're not functioning as human. The only time that happens is when we lose our light quotient and go down and the heart closes and then we go unconscious. So the majority of the time we're operating as a light being, as a Christed being, and working on, attaining even higher expanded awareness as a universe, right? And then eventually God consciousness. So we are told these pieces. We don't actively look for them. We are told where we are, what we're going through, all these pieces, as we go from the third dimensional experience into the fourth, fifth, sixth, and eighth now. So we're in the sixth primarily, but you're still going through stuff in the others and you're watching it, right? So it's very important to acknowledge what's going on. And even if it doesn't feel as extreme as it did because we're not human anymore and our entire nervous system has shifted, you still want to honor the process, honor the feelings and the depths of it, right? And so it took a couple days because you do have shock. Of course, you have shock. It took a couple days, and then everything going on with the X-class flares. I think we had like four, in a row to start to understand, wow, okay, so that was some really deep stuff from the root chakra. Money alone could be a huge one, that's such a huge one for humans. And then loss, so the perceived potential of loss is a huge thing, right, for our nervous system. Even the concept of losing a loved one is huge for the human to experience. So, I'm sharing these from the most recent events. For those of us that have not dealt with death or birth, it's going to be different for you, right? For you who may be watching. Now, me personally, um, death was a part from early age of being really ill in the hospital. And then in my later teen years, my grandpa and my dad lost them both in the same year. My daughter was born that same year or the year after that they both passed. And then I went into nursing and I worked with the elderly and I was doing hospice care. And now there's a whole thing. They call it like a death doula, there's like a whole thing. And for me, I just call it, it's just part of existing here on earth is that you have these paradigms at the gates of life and death. So the perception of loss or aging parents, um, aging loved ones. I cared for my grandmother with my mom. We both, as her mom, we both cared for my grandma Evelyn for 12 years. She had dementia, and it, progressively worse and worse and worse. And so my daughter was like 1.5 to 2 years old, and I had my grandma. So I had both, spectrums of older that needed care, and then a baby that needed care. So I do have a different experience or perspective, I guess, when it comes to death and aging and dying, because I've gone through it quite a bit already in my life. But it's still the same concepts of loss, that we will have the illusions of loss. In the instance that I just recently had, worrying about my daughter not being well and my cat not being well, and then on the human level, feeling like I couldn't take care of them. But all of it was an illusion. Now, we'll go on a whole other level for those of you who are dealing with family who are in the process of actively dying, or you're afraid of them dying, or they are ill. Um, it's a very sacred gateway. It's important to remember and to honor how you feel and how your human feels. And it's so important to validate your emotions and to go through, yes, I have attachments, or I'm scared of how the world's going to be without them in it. Like all the things that come up, it's really important to be with them all. And then from a higher perspective, it's very supportive to remember that everyone has their journey, right? Everyone has their cycles of what they came here to be, do, achieve, contribute, and then they're ready to go on to another plane. And so it's important to remember that. And one way of looking at this, like through a shamanic perspective, is that they're ready to be free of the body. They are ready to transmute themselves and go into another form. And so, one piece of wisdom I always would share with clients that were going through these processes of either had lost someone or grieving the loss of someone, or were preparing for these different cycles, is to share the good news is that even though they're not here in the physical in the same way, where you could touch them or hug them or hear their voice the same way, they're not limited now by the confines of the body, which means that you will see them and you can connect with them anywhere. You can ask to connect with them in your dream state. You can ask them to show up in different messages. Like, so for me, like my dad, he shows up in classic 1950s Chevy trucks because he used to rebuild hot rods. So he'll show up, his energy will show up in these old trucks. Or one of my clients, her grandmother would show up as a monarch butterfly, or a certain bird. So it's really expanding. And also on this concept of loss, I was with a dear forest friend, client in the woods the other day, and the first time I had met him in the forest, he had shared, that he had lost his wife, and he's still processing that. And so I saw him yesterday, and he was sharing that his dog was going in for surgery, and he's an older gentleman, and he said, "Oh my God, it's like I already lost my wife. If anything happens to the dog, I just don't know." And he was just sharing how emotional it's been and how he's never been so emotional in his life. And he's an Aquarius, and older gentleman too, like I said, like in his 70s. So he's been through quite a few generational shifts, right? And I could see how, as humans, the old world was so harsh, that our hearts were barely open. And we would only, for our own safety, really, for survival, we would only allow our hearts to open a little bit with very special souls, whether they were people or pets. And so then when that individual is removed, or we feel the threatening of that individual being removed, you literally will hear people talk about that. Like, I feel like I lost my love, or, I broke my heart, I lost my heart, right? And it's harsh for sure. And this is part of the human perspective, and also the different levels of consciousness of how we are perceiving. So I was just supporting him through it of like, well, your wife who's passed and now your dog are gifts, they're teachers for you to connect even more with your heart and to expand into your heart and into your emotions and start to feel empowered and capable of dealing with your emotions. Um, but that's a huge thing for us to understand is as humans, you notice a lot of people, their heart doesn't open, and it's really through breaking that the heart opens for a lot of us, and particularly those of us that are very fixed and stubborn. So it's a big topic, right? It's a huge topic. But it's important to feel fully, to acknowledge all the pieces, to go through the layers of all the thoughts and the fears, all the feels, and to also expand, to also continue to expand it and not get locked into any one place of looking. Um, Seeing that in a way it's an illusion and it's here to teach us something. It's here to show us something. That individual or the circumstance is here to show us where we were only allowing ourselves to feel any of the wonderful feelings that we should innately feel as a being, right? At a soul level. Um, and so this is all part of the new paradigm is becoming feelers again and allowing ourselves to grow beyond the fear of feeling or the fear of vulnerability or judging emotion, any of that. So this year of 2025 is going to be massive for so many people with loss. And I guess that's why we were told to do this vlog first, is just to share some personal experience, how we see things, how we deal with things, how quickly they can resolve as well. As soon as we are able to see, it's like, okay, cool, jump on to the next because there's always more, right? So I hope that this was supportive. I thank you so much for joining me. It's nice to have kind of more of a personal, one-to-one feeling, um, in these calls, a little bit more casual, because that's what we receive is, there's a huge level of stepping up happening for all of us. A lot more is going to be required. And the best way to teach is to share from experience. So thank you. Sending you all the love and all the support, and to remember to look at everything, to feel everything fully from a place of self love, and allow yourself to feel it all until you return to that peace again. And remember to ask for support from your angels and your ancestors, the ascended masters, your God consciousness self, your universe. Remember to start to open and engage in an active dialogue, right? It's almost like Ask Jeeves. You can, or what became Google, but you can ask any question in the universe and you will receive the answer, right? And so it's about having our hearts open, and anytime they close down, that's okay. We're learning how to live with them open, right? So that was today's episode about loss with regards to our human family, our pet family, and talking a lot about the root chakra and money. So thank you so much, and I will see you soon for the next episode. Namaste.